She's losing the fight, but not in the way people think. From the outside, it looks like she's still standing, still showing up, still smiling when required. But inside, there's a war being fought in silence, a war that doesn't leave visible bruises, a war no one applauds, a war no one even knows is happening. This is the most dangerous kind of battle because it's invisible. No one rushes in to help. No one calls it heroic. And yet, it's the one that takes the most strength to endure. Every day, she wakes up already tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes, but the kind that settles into the bones. The exhaustion of constantly questioning herself. The exhaustion of replaying conversations, choices, moments where she wonders if she said too much, not enough, or the wrong thing entirely. Her mind doesn't rest. It analyzes, it criticizes, it reminds her of every failure, every rejection, every time she gave her heart, her effort, her loyalty, and got disappointment in return. She doesn't talk about it because she's been trained not to. Somewhere along the way, she learned that being strong meant being quiet, that asking for help meant being a burden, that admitting pain made her weak, so she swallows it, she carries it. She tells herself, I'll deal with it later. But later never comes. The weight just keeps adding up. What's really happening is that an old version of her is dying. The version that tried to please everyone. The version that ignored red flags. The version that tolerated less than she deserved just to keep the peace. The version that believed if she loved harder, gave more, sacrificed more, things would eventually work out. That version is exhausted because it was built on betrayal. She's losing the fight against expectations that were never hers to begin with. Expectations to be agreeable, to be understanding even when she's hurt, to be patient even when her boundaries are crossed, to be low maintenance, easygoing, strong enough to handle it. Over time, those expectations chip away at her sense of self. She starts to forget what she actually wants. She starts to confuse endurance with strength. There are moments when she feels numb. Moments when emotions that once flowed freely now feel distant, muted, like they belong to someone else. That numbness isn't peace. It's self-protection. It's her nervous system saying, I can't keep feeling everything at this intensity. So it shuts things down. Joy feels dull, pain feels heavy but familiar, hope feels risky. She questions her worth in quiet ways, not always with dramatic thoughts, but with subtle ones. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe this is just how it's supposed to be. Maybe I'm the problem. These thoughts don't scream, they whisper, and whispers are more dangerous because they slip past defenses. Over time, they start to sound like truth. She's tired of starting over, tired of rebuilding herself after every disappointment, tired of being the strong one, tired of being told she's resilient when all she wants is rest. Resilience becomes a cage when it's the only option you're allowed to have. And yet, despite all of this, she keeps going. That's the part no one acknowledges. Even while losing the fight internally, she shows up externally. She fulfills responsibilities. She supports others. She handles crises. She does what needs to be done. That's not weakness. That's endurance at a level most people never experience. The reason this stage feels like losing is because the strategies that once worked no longer do. The old coping mechanisms fail. The distractions don't distract. The validation doesn't validate. The approval doesn't soothe. She's standing at the edge of a transformation she didn't ask for, but desperately needs. This is the uncomfortable space between who she was and who she's becoming. A space filled with confusion, grief, and uncertainty. She grieves not just people or situations she lost, but versions of herself she'll never be again. The hopeful one, the naive one, the one who believed effort alone could fix everything. There's a deep loneliness in this phase. Even when surrounded by people, she feels unseen, because how do you explain a pain that doesn't have a clear cause? How do you describe a tiredness that comes from constantly holding yourself together? So she doesn't. She keeps it to herself. She tells everyone she's fine, and eventually they believe her. But inside, something is shifting. Slowly, quietly, the cracks forming aren't signs of collapse, they're signs of pressure building, pressure that will eventually force change. She's beginning to realize that surviving isn't the same as living, that loyalty to others at the expense of herself isn't noble, it's destructive. This is the moment right before clarity, the moment before she stops negotiating with her own needs, the moment before she accepts that some battles aren't meant to be won the old way. She's losing the fight because she's fighting the wrong enemy. She's fighting herself instead of the patterns that keep hurting her. And when that realization fully lands, everything changes. But for now, she's here, in the silence, in the exhaustion, in the unseen struggle, losing the fight, yes, but only because the fight itself is ending. And something far stronger is about to take its place. Pain doesn't arrive politely. It doesn't ask for permission or wait until life is calm. It crashes in when she's already tired, when she's already unsure, when she's already carrying more than she should. And at first, it feels cruel, unfair, like proof that the universe is working against her. She looks at her life and wonders how she ended up here, how everything she tried so hard to protect still slipped through her fingers. This is the moment she believes she's losing, not because she failed to try, but because trying no longer seems to matter. She did the right things, she gave effort, she showed patience, she believed in people, she believed in outcomes, and yet here she is, hurt, disappointed, questioning herself. Pain at this level feels personal, like a verdict on her worth. But pain is not a punishment, it's a signal. At first she resists it. She distracts herself, she stays busy. She tells herself it's not that bad, or that others have it worse. She minimizes it because facing it feels overwhelming. If she lets herself feel everything, she's afraid she might fall apart. So she keeps moving, even as the pain tightens its grip. What she doesn't realize yet is that pain has already started working on her, quietly, ruthlessly. It's stripping away illusions she once clung to. The belief that effort guarantees results, the belief that love alone is enough, the belief that if she just waits long enough, things will change on their own. Pain doesn't negotiate with comforting lies. It exposes reality whether she's ready or not. Every disappointment sharpens her awareness. She starts noticing patterns she ignored before. How often she overgave. How often she stayed silent to avoid conflict. How often she accepted inconsistency because she hoped it would turn into commitment. Pain forces her to see clearly, and clarity is uncomfortable because it demands responsibility. There's a moment when she realizes she can't unsee what she now understands. She sees how much she tolerated that drained her. She sees how much energy she poured into situations that gave little back. She sees how often she abandoned herself to keep others close. This realization hurts more than the original loss, because now she knows better. Pain doesn't just hurt, it educates. It teaches her where her boundaries should have been. It teaches her what respect actually looks like, not in theory, but in practice. It teaches her the cost of ignoring her intuition, and the lesson is brutal because it's learned through experience, not advice. No one could have told her this in a way she would have truly understood before. There are nights when the pain feels endless, when she replays memories, words, promises that were never kept. She wonders what was real and what was just potential she imagined. She questions whether she was foolish for believing, for hoping, for caring so deeply. Pain has a way of turning reflection into self-blame if she's not careful. But slowly, something shifts. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" she starts asking, "What is this showing me?" That question changes everything. Pain stops being an enemy and starts becoming a mirror. It reflects the parts of her life that are misaligned. The places where she settled, the standards she compromised, the needs she ignored. Pain narrows her focus. It eliminates distractions. Things that once seemed important lose their grip. Approval doesn't matter as much. Pleasing everyone feels pointless. She starts craving honesty over harmony, depth over comfort, truth over fantasy. Pain has a way of simplifying life by burning away what isn't essential. This is where growth begins, even though it doesn't feel like growth yet. It feels like loss. It feels like grief, because she's not just letting go of people or situations. She's letting go of versions of herself. The one who hoped harder would fix things, the one who believed waiting was the same as trusting, the one who confused attachment with love. Letting go hurts because those versions once kept her safe, or at least felt like they did. They helped her survive earlier chapters of her life. But they can't take her where she needs to go next. Pain makes that undeniable. She starts to feel anger beneath the sadness. Not just at others, but at herself. Anger for staying too long, for ignoring red flags, for settling. This anger isn't destructive, it's awakening. It's her self-respect coming back online. It's the part of her that's finally saying enough. Pain gives her permission to stop pretending, to stop explaining, to stop justifying why she deserves basic respect. It pushes her towards self-honesty, even when that honesty is uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. There's a quiet strength being built here, though she may not recognize it yet. Strength that doesn't come from optimism, but from discernment. She's learning to trust her perception, to listen to discomfort instead of silencing it, to recognize that peace isn't found in avoiding pain, but in choosing pain that leads somewhere better. This is where clarity emerges, not all at once, but in fragments. She realizes she can't go back to who she was before the pain. And that's terrifying, but it's also freeing, because going back would mean unlearning everything she now knows. Pain forces her to choose, stay the same and stay stuck, or change and face the unknown. And while the unknown scares her, staying the same hurts more. That's how pain becomes a catalyst. It creates urgency. It removes the option of complacency. She starts setting boundaries internally before she sets them externally. She becomes more selective with her energy, more aware of what drains her, more protective of her time, her emotions, her peace. She may still feel broken, but she's no longer blind. Pain humbles her, but it also empowers her. It shows her that she survived something she thought would destroy her. Even on days when she feels weak, the fact that she's still here matters. It proves she's stronger than the story she tells herself in her darkest moments. This isn't the end. This is the forge. Pain is shaping her discernment, her standards, her self-respect. It's preparing her for a life that matches her growth, not her old wounds. One day, she'll look back and realize this was the moment everything changed, not because the pain disappeared, but because she stopped running from it. The pain didn't break her, it woke her up. There comes a moment when she realizes that waiting to feel better isn't working anymore. Motivation hasn't returned on its own. Confidence hasn't magically reappeared. The emotions are still heavy, the doubts still linger, and the world hasn't slowed down to give her time to heal. This is the moment where she understands something crucial. If she's going to reclaim her power, It won't come from how she feels. It will come from what she does. For a long time, she lived at the mercy of her emotions. When she felt inspired, she showed up. When she felt confident, she took action. When she felt loved, she gave freely. But when doubt crept in, everything stalled. When fear took over, she retreated. Her life rose and fell with her emotional state, and after everything she's been through, that emotional landscape is unstable. Self-discipline enters not as punishment, but as structure. As something solid she can lean on when her feelings are unreliable. Discipline doesn't care how she feels today. It asks only one thing: what are you doing next? At first, it feels mechanical. Uninspired, almost cold, she gets up when she doesn't want to. She moves her body when every part of her resists. She completes small tasks that seem meaningless compared to the weight she's carrying. But these actions are not meaningless. They are signals. Each one tells her nervous system, I am in control. She starts with the basics because the basics are where power is rebuilt. Sleep, nutrition, movement, clean spaces, simple routines. These are not glamorous victories, but they are foundational. When everything feels chaotic internally, external order creates stability. It reminds her that she can influence her environment, even if she can't control everything else yet. Her thoughts are the next battleground. She notices how often her mind turns against her, replaying mistakes, predicting failure, assuming rejection. Discipline here doesn't mean forcing positive thoughts. It means choosing not to indulge destructive ones. She interrupts spirals. She redirects attention. She limits how much time she allows herself to ruminate. This is exhausting at first, but over time it becomes easier. The mind, like the body, adapts to training. She begins to set standards for herself, not based on how others treat her, but on how she expects herself to show up. She decides what behavior she will no longer tolerate from others and from herself. No more self, betrayal disguised as kindness. No more over-explaining, no more chasing validation. These internal boundaries are quiet, but they are firm. Keeping promises to herself becomes a form of self-respect. Even small ones matter, especially small ones. When she says she'll wake up at a certain time and does it, trust is rebuilt. When she says she'll stop engaging in draining conversations and follows through, confidence grows. Each kept promise is a brick laid in the foundation of her new identity. There are days when discipline feels like the only thing holding her together. Days when emotions surge and threaten to pull her back into old patterns. On those days, she doesn't try to feel strong. She acts strong, and action, repeated consistently, eventually reshapes feeling. She starts to notice something subtle but powerful. Her reactions change. Situations that once triggered anxiety now feel manageable. People who once had the power to destabilize her no longer do. Not because she's numb, but because she's grounded. Discipline has given her emotional regulation, not by suppressing emotions, but by containing them. Her self-talk shifts from "I can't" to "I'll do it anyway," from "I don't feel ready" to "I'll get ready by doing." This mindset doesn't eliminate fear, it renders it irrelevant. Fear becomes background noise instead of a decision maker. With discipline comes clarity. She sees more clearly what aligns with her values and what doesn't. She stops romanticizing potential and starts evaluating reality. She chooses consistency over intensity, progress over perfection. This is where real confidence is born, not from hype or external praise, but from evidence that she can rely on herself. She also becomes more selective with her energy. Discipline teaches her that time and attention are resources, not obligations. She doesn't owe access to everyone. She doesn't owe explanations for protecting her peace. Saying no becomes easier because she understands what she's saying yes to. There's a quiet pride that develops, not arrogance, not ego, a grounded sense of self that doesn't need to announce itself. She knows what she's capable of because she's proven it to herself repeatedly in moments when no one was watching. This process isn't dramatic. There's no sudden breakthrough, no cinematic transformation, just steady, often boring consistency. But over weeks and months, the change becomes undeniable. She stands differently. She speaks more deliberately. She listens more than she reacts. Her presence carries weight. Discipline also reconnects her to purpose. As her daily actions align with her values, direction becomes clearer. She's no longer drifting emotionally. She's moving intentionally. Even when the path isn't fully visible, she trusts the process because she's participating in it. This is how power is reclaimed, not by controlling others, not by forcing outcomes, but by mastering the one thing she always has access to, herself. And in that mastery, she becomes unshakable. When she comes back, most people won't notice it right away. There's no dramatic announcement, no need to prove anything, no urge to explain where she's been or what she's survived. The comeback doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with stillness, a calm that wasn't there before, a steadiness that can't be shaken by opinions, reactions, or outcomes. This version of her doesn't rush. She doesn't chase. She doesn't perform strength. She embodies it. The desperation is gone. Not because she suddenly has everything she wants, but because she no longer needs external validation to feel whole. She's learned what it costs to abandon herself, and she's unwilling to pay that price again. Her energy is no longer scattered across people and situations that drain her. It's focused, directed, intentional. She moves differently now, not faster, but with purpose. Every decision passes through a new filter. Does this align with who I am becoming? If the answer is no, she doesn't debate it. She doesn't negotiate with discomfort. She simply steps back. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. Her silence is no longer a defense mechanism. It's a choice. She doesn't feel the need to fill space with explanations or justify her boundaries. Where she once over-explained to be understood, she now trusts that the right people won't need constant clarification. And those who misunderstand, she lets them. Peace has become more valuable than being liked. There's a noticeable change in how she responds to pressure. Situations that once triggered anxiety now meet composure. She pauses before reacting. She listens more than she speaks. Not because she's unsure, but because she's confident enough to observe. She understands that emotional control is real power. Anyone can react. Few can remain grounded. Her standards are higher, but they're quiet. She doesn't announce what she will or won't tolerate. She simply removes herself when something doesn't meet her values. No drama, no ultimatums, just action. And that's what makes her presence commanding people feel the certainty behind her choices. She no longer confuses attention with interest, words with effort, or potential with reality. She's learned to evaluate behavior, consistency, and alignment. This discernment wasn't learned in comfort. It was earned through disappointment, and because it was earned, it's unshakable. When she speaks now, her words carry weight. Not because they're loud or aggressive, but because they're measured. She says less, but what she says matters. She doesn't argue to be right. She doesn't convince to be chosen. She expresses, and then she lets go of the outcome. There's a grounded confidence in her body language, shoulders relaxed, eye contact steady, movements unhurried. She's not trying to impress. She's not scanning the room for approval. She's fully present, and that presence changes the dynamic around her. People feel it. They may not know why, but they feel it. This comeback is built on self trust. She trusts herself to walk away. She trusts herself to wait. She trusts herself to handle disappointment without losing herself. That trust is what makes her unstoppable. Not because she never struggles, but because struggle no longer knocks her off course. She understands now that strength isn't about endurance alone. It's about direction, about choosing what deserves her energy and what doesn't. She's no longer impressed by intensity without consistency. She's no longer flattered by words without action. She's no longer tempted by situations that require her to shrink. There's a softness to her that remains, but it's no longer unprotected. Her kindness has boundaries. Her empathy has discernment. She can care deeply without losing herself. She can love without chasing. She can give without depletion. That balance is the result of hard-earned wisdom. She doesn't seek revenge. She doesn't need closure from others. Closure came the moment she chose herself, the moment she stopped waiting for apologies that might never come. The moment she accepted that understanding someone's wounds doesn't require tolerating their behavior. Her focus has shifted inward, but not in a selfish way, in a self-respecting way. She invests in her growth, her health, her goals, her peace. She builds a life that doesn't depend on anyone's permission, and because of that, she becomes magnetic, not by trying, but by being. When challenges arise, she doesn't panic, she assesses, she adapts, she responds. Emotional resilience has replaced emotional reactivity. She knows storms pass, and she knows she can withstand them without abandoning herself. This version of her doesn't beg for alignment. She attracts it by living in truth. She doesn't fear being alone because solitude no longer feels like rejection. It feels like clarity. It feels like space to breathe. It feels like freedom. Her comeback isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about honoring herself right, and that's why it lasts. It's not fueled by anger or ego. It's fueled by self-respect. She's calm now, focused, unshakable, and that's what makes her unstoppable.